Oh, my hi. Good evening. We are live with Dr. Ashley Andrew. I'm so excited. I love talking to Ashley because we get talking about so many different things based on all of our different interests and stuff. But tonight we're here to hear from Ashley about what you've been doing. I'm so excited that you could join us for the series. I think that a lot of people can definitely benefit from hearing from you. Part of that is because I think you had a very creative and kind of um, an entrepreneurship type of very driven approach to where you're trying to go now, that it could give some really good perspective to different people just thinking outside the box and helping you get to where you are. So let's start with you telling us a little bit about who you are.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Ashley Andrew. I am currently a U.S. Medical Affairs Fellow at GSK, or newly reformed as Haleon, and it's as partner with the Rutgers Fellowship of Pharmacy Fellowship Program, I should say. But let me give you a little background about me and kind of how I ended up in this kind of role and how the different doors of pharmacy has opened. So when I started looking for jobs that I wanted to go out for, and my parents were like, something in the medicine field. I hated blood, and pharmacy was kind of like the ideal sector.
Yeah.
So in like the 10th and 11th grade, I became a pharmacy technician, getting like internships at like Giant and CVS, trying to get me myself some good experience. So by senior year, I was working as a technician at Giant, and I only had high school for like half the day. So it was kind of like a good experience. And I really liked that experience, like that patient care. But a couple things kind of changed as that path developed. So when I was looking into what I should do in the future, I was like, oh, pharmacy school sounds great. Like I've kind of built a path already. But meeting people during their rotations as they came to the pharmacy, it also gave me a different viewpoint, right? Like I don't know where many of these people are listening from, but in Maryland, the retail and hospital area is very saturated.
Yes,
Jobs
sir.
are very hard to come by.
Mhm,
So many more pharmacy schools have come out. Many students are coming out with no jobs.
mhm.
So you kind of have to take your education a step further, right? Whether it is going to do a residency, a fellowship, or looking forward to some sort of post grad degree that might be related to pharmacy.
Mhm.
So that's when like doing a fellowship kind of intrigued me because I have a kind of business mindset. And going to the industry, you have a wide variety of doors that it can open up.
In fact.
And the interesting part was going into a tinier school that I went to, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which is also Dr. Traore's alma mater.
Hot
Um,
pride.
yeah, right. It seemed a little bit harder because a lot of the school was very retail and focused.
Mm,
So being able to kind of come out there and in our class have the most post grad
match.
students ever in
Mhm.
our school in terms of match and fellowships, it's amazing. So kind of
Very.
that process of kind of seeing what is out there and trying to see, like how we can better pharmacy in general. So it's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting way.
Very interesting way. And I think I met you your first IP rotation as a
Yep.
first year. It was,
First
um,
year, yeah.
as a first year student pharmacist, right? I was immediately just really, really stricken by the clarity in your vision. It was so clear. Like at that point, people are like, I want to do a fellowship. And I immediately go, why? I don't know. I really don't like community and I don't think hospital is for me. So maybe that could be my path. A lot of things are maybes, but you had number one, number two, and number three. And this is how it's going to help me get to here and here and here. I was like, oh, this is dope. I have to see like how I can plug him in with everybody I know because I knew that UMES, as a very new school of pharmacy, some of those resources are lacking in helping expose you guys and plugging you into that alumni network that I really, really think is grossly underutilized at our school. So I was
Very
just really, really, really excited to just see. Then when I connected with you third year and everything you were talking about, I was like, oh, he's going to be just fine. But
Yeah, I remember like
yeah,
it was November of 2019.
it
I
was.
was on rotation at Carroll Hospital. And I think you gave me a very important contact at that time. It was Dr. Patel, Dr. Miraj
Yeah.
Patel,
Who's also an alumni.
who is also alumni and probably one
Yeah,
of the first, if not the only fellow that UMES had for
at
probably like the
that time.
first like 5, 6 years.
Yes.
And he was a great contact in terms of giving you things to get ready and kind of like what to look out for before
Mhm.
you get to the fellowship. So I mean, can't go wrong with building your network early.
No, cannot. And I have to say, like, he's been super consistent with that. I can't remember a single person that I've just been like, hey, this person is thinking about it or interested. Would you be willing to talk to them? Consistently, it's been like, yes, absolutely, plug me in with them. So I was so happy to find out that like that connection was so fruitful for you and it's been great. He's pretty awesome guy as well. Um, for student pharmacists everywhere, I'm going to start everywhere first. What are some fundamentals you think are extremely important on the topic of building that network and the importance of building that network? Just seeing how um, one connection, right? Like yours started with just one conversation with me that led to a conversation with another person. I think it would be great to just outline, in your opinion, based on your journey, how instrumental that's been for you.
Yeah, I mean that's a very intriguing question. I think the one important aspect, I mean, if we can go back to the question that you kind of asked, right? Like
Yeah.
when you ask somebody why residency, why fellowship, I think before you get started on any journey, you kind of have to research and do your own part. Do your due diligence of, like, why do I want to do this? Why do you want to do a fellowship? Is it going to be helpful now, helpful later? Are you looking for the reward? I mean, in terms of like how many doors it can open. I think asking yourself that question is very important in terms of how to open up your network during COVID. LinkedIn is probably like the best possible thing out there. Like I've reached out to hundreds of people and be like, "Hey, I'm interested in this role because I researched it. Do you mind if I take 30 minutes to like dig your brains and find out like how I can kind of get to your level? What are
Yeah.
some requirements?" So like I think having a goal in mind, there's anything possible with the internet, right? Like for me,
Yeah.
it's like I was really interested in medical affairs. So basically, any company that had medical affairs in like the top 10 pharma companies, and they were PharmDs, I sent a like, little quick message, and I probably got about 20 responses back. Had a chance to meet them, and that network grew. And they were like, "Hey, you should talk to my manager. You should
Yeah.
talk to my preceptor."
Yeah.
And that led to rotations. So that led
Yeah.
to people reviewing your CVs, letter of intent. So, it's like a chain that can
Yeah.
keep building.
Yeah.
And as you like open those doors, you're only opening up that kind of web or that chain even more. So I feel like, and another big thing I would say is communication.
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of people, when they come into the interview processes and like come into it thinking that like they got it, they know all the like the like the details, and they're very smart, but they just can't get it out there. The
Yeah.
communication is very poor.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a very good examples where like some of my friends are probably this way smarter than me. They
Mhm.
understand things to the T, but when it comes to the communication aspect, it's hard for them to verbalize it.
Mhm.
So being able to verbalize it, whether it's taking a communications class, a speech class, can help.
Yeah.
There's a lot of free things out there on the internet that can help you like be able to analyze situations and be able to talk really quickly and
Mhm.
explain things. I think that's something that definitely helped me throughout the whole process, especially for me where English wasn't my first language when I first started
Same,
out.
same.
So
We
you
know
gotta,
about those resources.
right.
I think that if you put a group of people where English is not their first language in the room, you'll find out that like we like I can speak for myself when I say this. I read as much as I do because English is not my first language. I get ideas about how to articulate myself by reading and hearing
Mhm.
how others articulate themselves. And it gives you an idea like, whoa, that was such a unique way of expressing that. I would have never thought that that's how I would set that up. Okay, cool. I have something else in my toolbox now. But those of us where English is not our first language, we look for those free resources because I couldn't pay. Like I depended on my public school education to get me through reading and writing. Um, but that ability to really articulate yourself in a way where not only do people understand what you're saying, but they can also grasp the depth of what you are trying to convey without going on and on and on. It takes
And go in
practice.
circles.
Yeah, you know? It takes practice. And I know like the first time you told me like, oh, English is not my first language, I had the reaction many people have. And I had to catch myself. I was like, really? Um, but I feel that 100%. I think that one of the other things that I really wanted to speak with you about was for medical affairs. And I believe like Rutgers, you guys are actively interviewing as we speak, correct?
Yeah, Rutgers is interviewing. So my company this year is not interviewing, but Rutgers
Gotcha.
as a whole, they're right now we're doing second round interviews going on right now currently.
Gotcha. Any advice? Any like beyond really practice how to get your communication, that verbal communication out there, keeping your audience engaged and making sure that you're not losing people and how you're laying out your stories and the questions you're explaining. What are some other things you think that were very helpful for you in kind of your interview process and the application process and stuff?
So, I mean, I think that's like the big part of what everybody's looking for right now, right? So,
Yeah.
the whole application process, the interview process was pretty grueling last year. To get to my point, I had to go through like about 90, 95 interviews. So,
Good
it
Lord.
was a lot of FaceTime with the camera, you know. So, a couple things that I find that was really interesting is the star method, right? The
Yeah.
star method, especially for like second and third round. So, usually in the first round, there's probably like two questions they really ask you, right? Or three questions. Tell me about yourself. Why this company?
Yeah.
Why a fellowship? And then why the functional area? Why medical affairs? Why regulatory? So the first round is a basic requirement for everybody.
Mhm.
And a lot of people end up getting removed from that position when they don't know how to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
Um, this is a time where you really need to kind of show yourself off. Like, don't
Yeah.
hold back.
Yeah.
Don't hold back.
Being modest can hurt you here.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, some people will be like, "I'm being humble. I'm being humble." But in reality, like first round, they don't look at your CV at all. They don't look at letter of intent. This is basically like a blind date with
Yeah.
whoever was usually a fellow.
I
So
love that expression. It's a blind date
it's
with
a blind date. Yeah. So
it's
like you have to show out. And this
true.
is your one shot. Like if you don't do well here, like and there's probably over like I think last year the average was it was about 100 applicants per position. So
That's
they go from like
insane.
100 to 10 and then go to 5. So I mean
That
you
is
have to really
that
show up.
is Ashley, that is nuts.
Yeah,
That is that like redefines what it means to say, "Oh, it's competitive." You know, like I'm a numbers, I'm a data person. So it's like 100 applicants per position. Okay. This back to you can't be modest.
yeah. I mean, if you want to go back to numbers, I think the acceptance rate for Rutgers were around 2 to 3%.
Goodness.
last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So right, I think that it can be overstated. There is knowing how to speak and knowing how to represent yourself. And then there's knowing how to tell your story. People relate to stories, people remember stories. They remember the story more than the answer. Like the story that you're using to affirm the example that you're being asked about, they'll remember that story and how you handle that. And I always tell the students I work with, okay, when you're done with that, I need every answer to close with. And what I learned from that experience was, right? Behavior modification is so important for any of these situational questions. You're not going to just get through, or how did you overcome failure? You're not going to overcome failure and then not prepare how we make sure next time if this happens, we're better prepared to respond to it. So I think interview season is a highly celebrated time, but also so much uncertainty because you go in and you say what you have to say and then you hope for the best. This is
Right.
really good advice.
And like speaking about interviews, I think something that I did and I thought it was really helpful was at the end of every interview, you got about 10 minutes for you to
Gotcha.
ask questions. And I thought it was very redundant if you ask questions very related to the fellowship, especially if it's everything is outlined in the brochure.
Hmm.
So I kind of went a different route and I kind of did like a stalkerish work on their LinkedIn.
Just
Um,
stalkerish. It's
yeah,
okay.
just um, and I would kind of go through their past, especially if it's a fellow. I'll be like, "Hey, like, I know you had a rotation in Pfizer when you were in pharmacy school, and how did that help you kind of relate into like the position you are now at, let's say, BMS?"
Yeah.
And they'll be like, "Whoa, hold
Whoa.
on. How do you know that? You
Prepared
did your
much?
work, right?"
Yeah.
So, and then once you get to the higher levels, you go to a director. There was this one lady who was a director of pharmacy at a hospital. I was like, tell me how that role was and how that helped you in terms of being an MSL director. And she was like, that was like 20 years ago. How did,
How did
like,
you
you
know
know,
that?
yeah. So like things like that will like catch their eye, right?
Yeah.
You have to stand out
Stand out.
rather than ask the basic questions. Oh, how does your day to day? Or ask them about something that they're favorite about. Like talk about sports or something like that, trying to
Yeah.
ease them up a little bit. So that's something I
Absolutely.
learned. And then at the end of that, at each interview, I always ask them to give me feedback based on our interaction. So,
Yeah.
they're like, hey, you talk a lot. So you got to get to the point. Or, you did a great job of, tying your stories together. So a lot of them are very honest. I think that helps you not only grow, but also use that as positive feedback or negative feedback for the next
Yeah.
interview to come
For
up.
the next interview. And that's such a great point because you're interviewing with company X now, but company X is maybe number one of nine others that are lined
Right.
up. So, if company X is willing to to give you any feedback, absolutely take it, ask for it, and receive all of what they have to give you.
Yeah.
It's just that competitive. um what has your year been like? So there's Helion now, which is part of GSK reinvented. I think it'd be cool to kind of find out what you've been up to so far this year, and what have the experiences been like so far for you.
I mean, right so far it has been amazing. So right when I started my fellowship, July 18th, GSK and now Haleon have
Mm,
demerged. So basically, GSK is sticking to their oncology and biotech,
gotcha.
and then Haleon is basically the OTC version. So we have such as like the big brands Advil, Voltaren. So I take care of the pain division. So
Gotcha.
the drugs that fall under my category is Advil, now the dual action, and Voltaren. So
Mm,
most of the things that I do is preparation for congresses or conferences
gotcha.
in terms of publications.
Mm,
So a couple of the things that I did a poster presentation that was done at AAFP, which is the American Academy of Family Practice, which
mm,
was in DC. So we had a whole like a product theater with some of our new products that we have coming out. And then also, we still have exclusivity for Advil Dual Action, which is ibuprofen and Advil. I mean,
Gotcha.
ibuprofen and Tylenol together, correct?
Tylenol. Okay.
Yeah, so we have a lot of data in terms of comparing this to opioids in
Mm,
terms of pain relief because it's kind of multimodal, right?
yeah.
So we have more data coming out at the end of this year and early next year, and then we're going to try to see how we can leverage that into, trying to see how we can end the opioid epidemic, which is
Yeah.
vast. Uh,
Meaningful work.
right, and another thing is we're actually in conjunction, basically in like a court war with Johnson and Johnson. So I don't know if you knew this, but Tylenol actually increases blood pressure, and it's clinically significant.
Interesting.
Um, and there's a study called the Path BP, which is a meta-analysis that looks at over 450,000 candidates that have received Tylenol and has increased their blood pressure.
Mm,
And we have taken that data and taken it to Tylenol or Johnson and Johnson in that fact, and to tell them that they just kind of stop like hounding us because one of their hate campaigns or things is that they don't increase blood pressure like ibuprofen or Advil.
Advil and
So in the last month, they actually kind of removed that whole advertisement campaign about saying that they don't increase blood pressure or increase cardiovascular disease or something like that.
effect. Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting aspect. You kind of get intrigued with, fighting with companies, learning more about that. And
But
then right,
also, this is a very clinically driven
yeah.
thing that you're talking about, right? Like, because the misconception out there is that those of you in fellowship, there's not much need for clinical or sound clinical foundation to be able to thrive in it. Everything I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, I was like, this is a very, very fully grounded. And you're telling me things like clinically significant cardiovascular disease. Like, it's not just about marketing the medication and publications and things like that, but what you're describing has a really good component of sound clinical practice and clinical standards in it. I think that's great for some people to hear that just feel like they won't have that little piece of pharmacy if they decided to do a fellowship.
Oh, I mean, in medical affairs, right? When you're sitting in that table, you're the only person that can depict what a clinical trial is.
Yeah.
Everybody around you, they don't know a lick of science. You know what I mean?
You are
They
it.
don't. Yeah, you're it, right? When that clinical data comes in, you have to decipher that, make that like bite-sized pieces for these other
Yeah.
people, marketing, regulatory, for them to be able to use that data. So I mean, you play a pivotal role in
Mhm.
how this drug is being marketed, how it's being rolled out, and how it's going to be end up in the market in like phase 4 trials and things like that as well.
Absolutely.
So I mean, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's just one of the comments that Dr. Pearson, who joins us often here, just drops like the sell reps don't sell anything, data sells the
That's
drug.
really
I
true.
couldn't I couldn't agree more because every time they want to come and talk to me, I'm very interested in the data. I'm very interested in the literature. Let's start our conversation there after I've had a chance to review it. Thank you so much, Ashley. I think also one other thing I wanted to just get you to talk about, the first year student pharmacist that is unsure. They're not as lucky as you were, where you knew after your first semester where you were headed. Um, the first and second year student pharmacist that's still sorting it out. Is it going to be a fellowship? Is it going to be residency? Heck, is it even going to be postgraduate training at all? What are some advice that you can offer these students so early in their careers, whether it's about opportunities to look out for or things that they can kind of open themselves up to help in that decision making process?
Well, that's a hard one. I think everybody is situated in different places, but I think the big thing with that is you kind of have to see the playing field out there now. I think that with just a PharmD, it's getting hard.
Mhm.
The retail space is filled up, it's clogged up.
Mhm.
Um, Post grads degrees have been muchly in favor, whether it's doing a fellowship residency, an MPH,
Mhm.
MBA. There's so many roles that opens up. But I mean, to be honest, a PharmD has so many doors that people are not even kind of surface that thought.
Yeah.
There's so many government jobs that are
Mm.
out there directly for pharmacists.
Yeah.
I mean, FDA, CDC, NIH.
Yeah.
There's 100. You live in the DC area. There's so many
Yeah.
jobs, but people
Think
just
of
don't think about it.
yeah. Literally any of these government agencies related to health, public health, community health, health in it, um, even the private sector. There's
Yeah,
just so much. Um,
there's so many things that you could do. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, if I don't do a residency or fellowship, I'm stuck in retail. No, no, no.
no.
I think there's
I
so
think
many things.
yeah.
There's a lot of things within the government, right? Indian Health Services. I know a
Yes.
lot of people have been fortunate to go there, have a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
But I mean, don't get me wrong, a fellowship or a residency is going to open up a lot more doors
Mhm.
for you in the future.
Quickly,
Yeah, a lot
quickly.
more quickly. Very true. But I think it's something that you also have to see, like, right, what is your end goal? Like, what do you want to
Mhm.
do at the end? Are you more into patient care? Because,
Mhm.
like, even you, right? I told you should come and join the industry. You'd be a great,
Yeah.
like,
Ashley's actively recruiting me, guys.
so I mean, but again, like your goal is like you love patient care. Like
Yeah.
you care about every single patient that walks into your hospital. And that is something that when you enter the industry, you're not going to be able to touch a single patient directly, but you're going to touch a patient population as a whole,
Yes.
whether it's directly or indirectly. So it's a different type of hands-on approach. So I think
Absolutely.
everybody has their own niche. So if you're entering pharmacy and you want to have that hands-on approach, then like a residency or retail or some sort of community-based setting is kind of where you want to be at. But if you want to make a difference and you don't mind or you don't care for that patient care, but want to make a systematic change or
Yeah.
want to be on some other end of things, then going into a government agency or doing a fellowship can be very pivotal to your career.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And also, like, I always tell students, like, there are so many fights that we can join as pharmacists. Like, we can join the fight about safe, effective, and pure medications. We can join the fight about delivering quality, equitable healthcare to medically underserved, underrepresented. We can join the fight on the reliability of the information, medical information that the public is provided so that they're making well informed decisions, advocacy, statewide. Like, it's just about deciding what fight you want to pick. Like, what fight do you want to join? Right. Like, as long as I could remember, the fight that was my fight is making equitable, accessible, and making high quality healthcare accessible to everybody, regardless of their socioeconomics. I've always just felt like that is a right and it shouldn't be a privilege, which I think it is currently in this country. And so that's how I wanted to join the fight, and I found that so fulfilling. But I recognize that, like, how I make the recommendations about I want to go with drug X instead of that, it's because somebody else has joined the fight in the research and development of that medication and making sure that the information I'm looking at, it's accurate, it's complete, and I can make really sound clinical decisions based on that. So I respect people and their choices to join whatever functional areas they want to join. But I always tell them, like, you have to find what you're passionate about, what speaks to you, and how you want to kind of elevate the conversation and wherever. Like, whatever table you're at, like, because you are going to be that person speaking up, and you're not speaking up for you, but you're thinking about how this information gets translated to patient care for those of us in the front lines, you know?
Exactly. I think it's like we talked about like the networking, right? There's networks within this that gets passed down in terms of the information.
Yeah.
to the actual frontline healthcare workers, which
Yeah.
really helps out.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Okay, seriously, guys, like when I say I can't talk to Ashley for like forever, I can. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
doing
having
this.
me.
It was literally like just one message, and you were like, "Yeah, I'll do it. Send me dates." And I love that energy. And I always hope that, if I can do anything, that that I'm also like a text message, not some weird formal email that's going to come through with some weird request. I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for you about what's going to happen in the next few days, a few years for you here. And will I see you at midyear?
I will definitely be there. I got two
Hey.
posters there.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'll stop by your poster session. You're such a good presenter. So I'll come get educated a little bit more from what your project was. Thank
Perfect.
you. Thank you,
Thank you so
Ashley.
much for those
Can
kind
folks
words.
reach out to you? Can folks reach out? I,
Yes,
I kind of know
please.
the answer, but I have to be polite and ask.
Yeah, anytime. My anything on LinkedIn, I can give you my email if you want to get that out there too. But LinkedIn
Awesome.
is probably the easiest thing to reach out to me on.
I can echo that. LinkedIn is definitely easiest. And for everybody who was able to join us for this session, thank you so much. I hope you found it very informational and useful. Thank you so much again, Ashley. Have a wonderful evening. Have a good evening, everybody. And
Take
I'll
care.
see you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye.